I call you my quitting doula. Like,
I love it.
because it was not an easy decision.
Have you ever felt like the script you're following doesn't quite fit anymore? Then you're in the right place. I'm Marisela Herrera, and I started Should I Just Quit My Job after walking away from a job I thought defined me. Forget the highlight reels. Here we talk about the messy middle, the doubts, the detours, and the chaos that come with rethinking who we are. Because the truth is, it was never just about quitting a job. It was about questioning everything I thought I knew. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Should I Just Quit My Job? I'm Marisela, and I'm so happy you're here. Thanks for taking some time this week to listen to my conversation with someone I had been wanting to come on the show for a really long time. So today I'll meet Dr. Sofia Pertuz. She's someone I met at Elevate years ago. She was at that point at Billie Jean King Enterprises. Now is doing her own entrepreneurial ventures as a coach, as a consultant, and honestly as a culture changer in many organizations. She was already doing a lot of that through her job, but also on the side as a consultant and a coach. But the reason I wanted her to come was I really like her. I've liked Sophia since I met her. I think she's someone that I've learned a lot from. We have had some great conversations, and she's incredibly smart. She was in academia for years and in nonprofits, and she's had like this very interesting experience. And she's a Latina, so we have that in common too. I remember we used to see each other a lot. She would host the Elevate online community spaces that were called Holding Space for Latinas. And I would join those and get to see her there. But when I left Elevate, we stayed in touch. And Sophia, for some time, was thinking about what she was going to do next. She knew she wanted to do something with everything she was already doing, like with her consulting. She had created this group for Latinas. She was doing so many things and wanted to move down that entrepreneurial path. There was something stopping her. And I had many a conversations with her about my own decision to quit, my own journey. I know she's been one of the biggest supporters of this show. Even last year, I think one of the moments that made me smile the most, the end of last year, was that Sophia sent me her Spotify Wrapped, and my show was on it, and it just really made my day. So she's awesome, and we connected more, I think, through this process of her figuring out what was next for her and me having taken the leap and left my job. I'm glad that I've helped people see what the opportunity is on the other side, even if it's scary, even if it's confusing, even if sometimes it's hard. Anyway, we talk about her time in academia, the changes that have happened in the diversity, equity, and inclusion landscape. We talk about her decision to go the entrepreneurial route. We talk also about our gifts and the natural abilities that we all have and sometimes don't see because for us they're so natural and how we should be leaning into those. Even why not monetizing those? Because I mean, what is very easy and natural for me might not be easy and natural for someone else. And it might be a skill they need. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I had a lot of fun talking to her, and I would love to know what you think. Send me an email, quitmyjobpod@gmail.com, and I'll see you next time. Bye. You have listened to this podcast, so you know what I'm going to ask you. What did you want to be when you were growing up?
I've thought about this. I wanted to be all kinds of things, but I would say if I had to pick the analytical answer after living life for 52 plus years, I wanted to be a teacher, an
Oh,
educator. I've always wanted to be someone teaching something to other people. I was the second in my children of 5 that grew up together. I have brother and sister that are older than us from my father's first marriage, but the 5 of us, I was always the teacher, setting up like teaching sessions and anything we were doing, I was the one kinda like taking the charge and leading my younger siblings, which is funny because my older sister ended up actually being a real teacher, like a school teacher, high school teacher. And I was a teacher, like a faculty member, but that wasn't my like full-time profession.
So you said that was the analytical answer after looking back. What was
Yep.
the emotional answer? What would have been the thing that you were like, "When I was a kid, that would make my heart sing."
I wanted to be an actress because I thought it was so cool, and I actually went to auditions. My mom never knew when I was in high school. I actually took the train all the way to Queens and went on some weird little audition, and I was always short and chubby. So the lady was like, "You can probably do some spick and span commercials or some other cleaning products." And after that, I was so disappointed. I was like, "I don't want to do that. I don't know what else I want to do." But I also wanted to be an attorney. I worked at a
Mm.
law firm while I was in high school and college, and then I saw how they were and very mean to each other,
Mm.
working late hours, always there, and I'm like, "Okay, I didn't become a lawyer, but I still did that later." Working late hours, being on call 24/7 in my different jobs in higher ed. So I was like, "Oh, yeah, you gave up the big money over there so you could be in academia."
So you can work late hours
Yeah.
and
Yep.
with mean people. Maybe. Hopefully not so many, but let's
Most
be
of them were
honest.
nice. Yeah, yeah. Most of them were pretty nice, but some of them were mean. Yeah.
But yet teacher, you weren't necessarily like a teacher. Were faculty, you went to academia, so, like, it does make sense. That's why it was the analytical answer, looking back,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. It was like, if I gave it the bigger picture, it's like an educator. I've always
Mm.
done some kind of training or telling someone how to do something and setting up systems for people learning different things. So I guess that's what higher ed does. That's
Right.
where I grew up in my first 25 years of my career. And even when I left, I was still doing some kind of educational teaching of some sort.
And you still are.
Yeah, yeah. We just call it training and development, leadership
Yeah.
development, team development, coaching.
That's one of the things I realized when I started teaching, when I started, like, actually going to like, the college and being a professor, that, like, yes, this is what I like to do. It's not surprising to me that I like to teach and that I like what I'm doing because I liked coaching and building my team up and trying to explain things, and I'd like planning conferences, like, all of this, like, content part that I've always enjoyed, except now it's very specific.
Yeah, so you've probably been doing it your whole life, but the thing that's different about teaching is like finite, right?
Mm.
You have a specific thing you're trying to say you're teaching. You have a plan for it. You have an end and a beginning and an end. But when you're teaching in the workplace, I would say it's like an ongoing. Sometimes you don't even know what you need to teach until somebody like doesn't do something or does it the way that maybe they weren't supposed to. I was at an event recently and it was like a raffle ticket thing and somebody's daughter was running it. She's a high schooler and she starts handing everybody their tickets and I said, "Wait, I have both tickets. I can't win if one of them's not in the basket." And the mom was like, "Oh my goodness, I told her to run the raffles and I didn't realize that I had to explain to her, give the ticket to one person and then keep the coupon or whatever so that when you call it, one person has the actual winning ticket and you have the ticket in the basket." So it was like a moment of clarity. I was like, "Oh, she didn't realize she needed to explain that because we've been running raffle tickets like decades." Me and her were the same age, so it's funny.
It is, but it's very much what you're saying about the workplace, and I think even now, I talk to other people who are trying to do their own thing, and they're stuck on stuff that maybe to me is very natural and very, "Oh, yeah, I know how to do this," and then I'm stuck on stuff that for them is very natural, they know how to do it, but we never realize that, like, we take it for granted, just like the tickets, right? Like, you take it for
Yeah.
granted before actually thinking through of, "Oh, wait, these are things that someone else might not know. These are things that I still need to explain. These are things that I need to be much more clear about," just because we take it for granted.
Yeah, because once you know something, you can unknow it later, but you forget things. But for the most part, once you learn how to do it, you forget what something was like, how maybe what it felt like your first day of school, your first day at work, what it felt like to learn where the bathroom is,
Mhm.
where to sit, how to open a file on the computer. You just know how to do stuff. So trying to explain and teach it to somebody else is such a different moment of clarity or realization, I would say.
What brought you to academia?
I went to college and I would say I never left for a couple of decades. So I was an RA, a resident assistant, and I was a leader in my undergraduate time. And I remember having these mentors who really helped me out, taught me how to interview for jobs, taught me how to help other people. And then as a resident assistant, I was doing that. People would come to me with all their issues, anything they need help with. And there was something I just loved about that. So I remember asking my hall director, how can I do what you do? And she's like, oh, you have to get your master's degree and you have to go and start as an entry level residence hall director or assistant hall director, a graduate assistant. And then from there, there's a path in higher ed, specifically student affairs. There's another path for faculty for sure. But I did the path. I did the grad assistantship, got my master's degree. I did the residence hall director. And I think back on that, I'm like 22 years old. I was running a building of 350 undergraduate students and supervising 8 resident assistants just like me, not that far from my time as a resident assistant. And I remember having these meetings with the students just to talk to them about disciplinary issues, where if they were making poor decisions. They weren't bad students, they were students that made bad decisions. So learning all that in my 22 years old. And I remember that and thinking there's all these safety issues I had to keep in mind. There were all these 24/7 things that would happen in college where either it was an emergency or some other thing came up in the physical building, running a physical building,
Mhm.
working with maintenance, making sure that it's clean. And I'm like, "Wow, who does that at 22?" But that's how I got into academia. That was my first official job. And usually in residence life, student life, and student activities, you take different paths. You either stay in the residential part of things or you shift over to student conduct, you shift over to student activities. So somewhere along the whole 25 years, I shifted to almost every aspect of student affairs. And eventually, as you move up, you have those areas reporting to you. So my last role in higher ed, the toughest job I'll ever love, was Associate Vice President and Dean of Students. I was on call 24/7, and all the areas that reported to me were all the things I had done as in different roles. So residence life, student recreation, intramural sports, student activity, student engagement, diversity, equity, and inclusion, fraternity, sorority life. So all the ways that students get involved and get excited about living and working and getting involved on campuses. So that was my last job. And then before I got recruited out of academia, I never thought I would leave. I thought I was gonna be in higher ed forever. You do all the path. As an assistant vice president, associate vice president, the next step is vice president, and if you're lucky and you work hard and you stay in it, maybe president. At least my mother thought that. She's, "You're not president, tú no eres presidenta todavía. You're not president." I'm like, "That's not how that works. You gotta go through other things." But I did the PhD. They were like, how do you move up in the path? You have to get a PhD in higher education, management, leadership, and policy or something like that, and that's what I did too. But I'm not in academia technically anymore. I am. I'm adjacent 'cause I still teach, but I didn't follow the path.
It's a lot of responsibility, like, thinking of it when you were 22 and all of that, like, it's crazy,
Yeah.
honestly. But the idea of commitment of the studies, the having tried every single thing, the PhD, the because you are so committed to this path, because you're so like, "This is what I'm looking at," or, to be presidenta eventually.
It's not too late. Maybe
Not too
someday.
late. So you said you got recruited out of it. Is that why you left? Do you think you would have just stayed and continue that path?
I think if I did, I'm not sure if I would be healthy and alive right now, to be very honest with you.
Mm.
It was a really tough job to have because you're on call 24/7, and I remember having to have really tough conversations with the students, with your direct reports. And I had to let go of people not doing what they're supposed to do and make some changes to reorganize staffing, and that was hard. I didn't realize how difficult that was until I was in that role with a lot of responsibility and budgetary responsibility. But there were aspects I absolutely loved, the student engagement part, the activities, but I think the parts that were hard was realizing that you had those hard decisions to make, and I lost sleep at night sometimes over some of those decisions, especially expelling students that were doing things that they were really not supposed to do or hurting others or just seeing some of the life conditions, human condition of each other, but also not feeling treated well myself in some moments. I've been back to the campus sometimes, I won't name it, but I feel some, like, physical trauma sometimes and mental trauma when I feel like, "Oh, that's when so and so yelled at me because they were thinking that I did this thing or that thing," and just feeling like while I felt like I was doing a great job and I was navigating the campus environment and in it, I was all in it, there were just moments when as a Latina, as a woman of color, I felt like I needed to just work harder or really prove myself or put myself out there in ways that stretched me beyond just being on call. Just the regular job itself is hard for anyone who's ever done a job like a dean of students. But then on top of that, the layers of handling some of the sticky situations and racial tension, things like that, that it was heavy. It was heavy sometimes.
There's a
So I'm
lot
not
of
saying
emotional.
a lot. Yeah, it was a lot.
I was thinking you were saying about hard decisions, and in my mind, I kept thinking, well, anywhere you go as you grow and as you get more senior, you have to make hard decisions. Like that you can't get away from. But then you started talking about students and the human condition. And ooh, that I can see how it would be even harder. There's a different aspect, not just of the making hard decisions for your team or for the company or whatever it is. It's making hard decisions for all of this other people that you're going to be impacting.
Yeah, like that's
Kids,
not
many of them.
normal. Yeah, if you have a regular 9 to 5, I would say in corporate, technically, unless there's something financial or something else that you're in charge of or building or something that, does run 24/7, you can go home and say, "You know what? It can wait till tomorrow. No one's dying here." When you live and work at a campus that it's live 24/7, it's possible someone lives and dies. I don't mean to be
Yeah,
dramatic in
yeah,
this
but
moment, but
it's
you're really literally having some life and death conversations in some moments, and that's not easy. That's
yeah,
hard.
that is a whole other
Yeah.
ball game. I remember talking to someone who was a dean of students. Well, I was actually there, and I talked to her on the podcast after she left. She had left, and for her, it was like the school was her whole identity. Like she had been so for so many years. It was just this. I'm understanding it to a deeper level as you're talking about it, because there's not just the fact that you're embedded into it for and are such a core part of it, but that you're dealing with all of these things too.
Funny you should say that. Around that time, I did get recruited by a nonprofit for a role in a nonprofit organization. And I remember meeting them all and really excited about what it was because it was still connected to higher education. It was working with more campuses around mental health support and suicide prevention. So to me, it was a really important topic. It was meaningful. When I met the people, the CEO and all the other folks, I was like, these people get it. They get it. They're just really cool, amazing people, still connected. And it was an opportunity to, one, not be on call 24/7. To work with a whole network and system on how to support students, where if I'm just one person trying to do it on one campus with
Mhm.
the system on campus, I'm just one part of that one campus system. But when you're working as a consultant, it's almost like you're external to it. You're making recommendations, suggestions, and if they don't take it, you go, "Okay, you know what? We've given you the framework, the system." When you're the one asking to implement it and you know it's the right thing to do and you have the system that you're trying to influence, you take it personally. So the
Yeah.
identity part becomes so much more hurtful when you're like, "I'm trying to create something here," and you're like, "Okay, I'm not the only one here. There's a whole system of all of us." That was when I actually changed my bio. In my bio, I was Sofia Pertuz is the associate vice president, dean of students. She was the associate director, whatever my title was. The way I would start my bio,
Mhm.
that was the first time because the title was so different. The first part of my title when I first got there was senior advisor, which I was like, "Wow, I love that it's not connected to you don't even know what level in the organization it
Right.
is," right? Until they changed my title later to chief diversity and inclusion officer. And I changed my bio for the first time to Sofia B. Pertuz is an educator, I put other descriptors of me and then my title later because I figured, you know what? I think people won't even understand what that title is. So I was like, let me just name the bigger picture of what I am, a leader, an educator, etc.
You did it earlier than many of us do it. Because for me, it was also it was a big I talk about it in the podcast. It was a big moment of like, what
Who am I?
what am I? Like, what do I do? Still to this
Yeah.
moment, sometimes I'm like, "What do I do?"
Yeah, how do I even introduce myself anymore? I don't even know. I'm so many different things.
I like that you did that on the early side.
It was empowering for
Yeah,
sure.
I'm sure. You were recruited by the
Mhm.
nonprofit. That was the JED Foundation, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But still, you had such a long tenure where you were that I'm wondering what made you want to pursue that opportunity besides the kind of burnout that you're talking about? Was there something about the idea, not just of working with the systems, but like nonprofit space or something else that was calling you to do something different?
Well, definitely, I didn't label it burnout at the time, but I realized that when I got that recruitment, it was through LinkedIn, and I got the outreach, and I was like, huh, this is interesting. I wasn't actively looking. If I saw interesting opportunities and I thought my next role is going to be a vice president of student affairs, and when something opens up, I'll see. But there was something about the idea of not I didn't even know at the time what freedom was gonna look like until I did take the job and going back and forth trying to figure out if it's the right fit, and I had to move and all that. But once I started the position, the hours were normal, like, just 9 to 5, right? Let's say 9 to 5. I think it was like 8:30 to 4:30, but let's say it's a 9 to 5 job, and I'm like, what do I do with myself after 5? I was suddenly very open and had time to take care of myself. I started going to the gym. And of course, let me mention this. I'm a mom. And at the time, I had kids in school. And I was so used to having my partner, who was a stay at home dad, be the lead for taking care of them and their most basic day-to-day needs, that I got so used to that life that when I was in a normal job and I could come back and contribute to being part of my kids' lives in a normal, good way, I was like, "Wow, this is what, like, parenting is real for real. Wow, amazing." So I think that was also a motivator for me. I realized as my kids were getting older, they're not getting any younger, and neither am I, and I wanna be part of their lives, their day-to-day lives, and they're leaving me soon. Like, right now, my daughter is living in her best life with her first job, she moved out, my son's in college, so I'm technically an empty nester right now, and I'm like, "Thank God I had that moment in time that I was able to really enjoy them and go to their events and not be like, 'Oh, I'm on call,' or 'I have to go to this campus event, so no, I can't come to your thing,'" whatever they were having. So now, when I took that job, it was suddenly life first job
Mm,
because that was also the ethos of the organization. For mental health org, of course, that was like everyone needs to take care of themselves. Whatever you need to take care of yourself is first. You're first. I never had that before in my 25 years before that.
that's crazy. And I wanna note that you said you didn't call it burnout then, and I would say I don't think anyone called working yourself to levels of way too much burnout because we didn't talk about burnout. That's a relatively new concept. It was what
I
it was.
Yeah, yeah, I'm an immigrant, I'm Dominican, I was born there, brought here when I was a baby, and I don't think I could have talked about being tired growing up. That was not a thing. If you were gonna sit down on the couch and look like you're relaxing, my mom would go find a broom real quick. You need something to do? "Tú necesitas algo que hacer?" And hand us a broom, "Go clean something, go do something." So right now, I'm still struggling with figuring out how to relax. Still, even with that shift in my career at the time, I was still trying to figure out how to have fun, add joy, add time for me. You see what I did? The first thing I thought of, being in my kid's life. It wasn't like, oh, being there for myself or doing stuff for me.
Did you start trying stuff that were more for you?
I did. So I have a bachelor's, a master's, and a PhD, right? So of course I'm gonna name all the different things, and I always keep going in my education and get certification. But one that I'm so proud of and excited about is this certificate I have on my wall. I actually put it up. It's called Stand Up University Graduate because I did a stand-up class in I'm thinking when was oh, I completed it the 15th day of October 2019. So that
Wow.
was a year after I had been out in the regular workplace, I would call it. I wanted to figure out what to do with myself. I saw a sign in the library and I was like, hey, they have stand up classes. It was really cool. It was a comedy club in Belmore where many famous people like Kevin James, Ray Romano, Eddie Murphy have stood on that stage. So there was something about taking stand-up classes there, and it was like a regular course, like 8 weeks, 3 hours. I was with a group of people. We were helping each other create materials, and then my graduation class was on October 15th. It's actually on YouTube right now.
Okay, I'm gonna have to find that and put the link in the show
Oh,
notes.
yeah, yeah. So I was so proud of it because I never knew. I think I'm funny, right? Sometimes I thought I and my mom used to always be like, "Tu crees que tú eres cómica?" I think you're funny because I was always like that smart ass coming at her. So I tried it, and it was really fun. It was different, and the people in the class were older than me, younger than me, and it was just a whole different group of people and experience that I had never done before.
That, I think, is the best way to get to know yourself. Like, doing something so different that you might hate. I tried improv. I thought I was gonna be great at improv. Turns out I'm not, and I hate it. But I learned
Okay.
so much more about myself,
You learned
and I
that you
did
didn't
it.
like it.
Yeah, and I did it in a moment like that, in a moment where I was like, "Wait, what do I do with this time?" How long did you stay at the nonprofit?
3 years,
And you're
and
still working with them, though.
yeah, I still work with them, which is really cool. I feel like I always say to them, like, "I never left," because I got a really amazing opportunity in 2021 as we were in the pandemic. There was a racial reckoning after George Floyd was murdered, and there were companies now that had not focused on their diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts and were thinking about what should we be doing? What could we be doing? And I had been doing that my whole career also in higher ed. The other cool thing about higher ed, I'm always gonna give higher ed its flowers. The experiences that you have along the way and the things that you get to do is such a big variety of things, and one of them was diversity and inclusion. I realized when I joined this an organization for professional women that not everyone does everything in their job, that there are all these specialists and people who do just
Mhm.
very specific things. So I learned quickly that I could be doing consulting or working with people or sharing some of the knowledge that I had along the way of how to set up employee resource groups, how to set up dialogue groups, how to set up educational efforts and programming within a company, within an organization. I've been doing it my whole life. That's what we do in higher ed. We train each other, we create these curriculums. And I was doing that for some of my colleagues, not for pay or anything just yet, but when I did that, a few people saw me presenting on how to center diversity inclusion in your workplace, how to think about different audiences, that kind of thing. And this woman who saw me said, "Hey, we're thinking of building the inclusion and DEI consultancy. We're working on that with some of the companies that we consult with. Are you interested in helping us or joining us?" And that was Billie Jean King Enterprises. And that was absolutely an amazing opportunity, and even my CEO at Jed was like, "Oh, you have to take this opportunity. That's amazing." She is an icon. Ilana and Billie Jean are, like, such pioneers, not just in the field of tennis, but even beyond with women's sports and really centering the idea that there should be equality. When I got that opportunity, I couldn't say no. I did it. So I did leave Jed in June 2021 and worked with Billie Jean King Enterprises for another 3 years. So it's like 3 years and then 3 years with Billie Jean King Enterprises before I now we get to the "should I just quit my job" part of the podcast when I decided to do my own thing, and I left in August of 2024.
I wanna comment on something that you were saying because you're talking about all these things you did in higher ed, and this goes back to the, like, it's natural for us, that you had to realize that that this is something you've been doing and you could do it as a consultancy, that you could do it in a different way.
Yes.
I've been dealing with that because I've been trying to build out some, like, consulting offering, and I was talking to someone I used to work with, and she's like, "Well, you did all those things." I'm like, "But I didn't, I wasn't consulting." And it's like, you did all those things, like, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. But we it's very hard to break it out from "This is just what I do," from
Yeah, yeah.
"These are these, like, great skills and assets and things I could do in whatever other setting," whether it's consulting, whether it's something else, like, there's just a switch
It is.
that you need to turn on.
It is a switch because same thing with coaching. I'm a coach now, and I had been mentoring and coaching my whole career. And it wasn't until I hired a coach myself where I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna pay someone to help me think through some of these big decisions." Some of the transitions that I made along my career, I always had a coach that helped me that I didn't realize at the time, like, it was an investment.
Mhm.
And I was willing to make that investment. But I didn't realize, hey, I could become one of those people. So that I did go through the training, got certified to be a coach. And it was one of those moments of, I remember I invested. So why wouldn't we put money into the world and circulate it around and give each other different opportunities? So it's okay to charge. But you're right, it's a switch. I had to get a coach to help me think through. It's okay for you to charge for the things that you know, even though they come naturally to you.
Mhm.
They're valuable to someone else, and if you do it with integrity, you set it up in a systematic way that someone can know and have actually get a result, a transformation. Like, I coach people who are in transition. I've changed fields. I went from higher ed, I've taught in the classroom, I did the nonprofit, sports and corporate, and now entrepreneurship. So I'm like, how many more switches are we gonna make? I don't know what's next, but I want retirement to be the next transition, but I'm not ready. I'm not there yet. But I think that idea of it's okay for people to pay you for your knowledge and for your experience. I'm now very okay with it.
Yeah.
More than okay.
When you got certified, did you think you were gonna become a coach full time at some point in your life? Or was it just, "I wanna do this because I'm doing this anyway, so let me just get the certification."
You wanna hear a secret that's not gonna be secret? The reason I got my coaching certification is because I am sometimes not a great listener, or I thought I wasn't. And I remember thinking to myself, learning how to coach someone officially means really being good at listening and asking good questions and centering them in the conversation. And as a middle child who loved to present and talk a lot, I realized if I'm actually going to consult and help people and be a coach, I probably should learn what that looks like and means. Because I remember having, like I said, great coaches that I was like, wow, you really listened to me. You were so great. So when I got the certification and went to the courses to do that, it was amazing how much I learned about myself and how I learned I actually can listen and listen very attentively because my mind works very fast, which is problematic for some people
Mhm.
because they're already talking and I think I already know what they're saying. So I knew that was a dangerous part of the way that I sometimes operate because my brain works quick. What coaching certification classes taught me was let people finish their thought because there might be some hidden gem in there that you don't know. You're not in that person's brain. So it was pretty cool to go through that and really learn a few new skills, like really how to listen.
But then it was for you, like, it was for you as a skill that you wanted to build, not necessarily thinking, "This is what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life." I'm always fascinated with when because I know a lot of people who have gotten the coaching certification, and I'm always curious of what led them to it. Okay, so you were at Billie Jean King for 3 years,
Yep.
and it was a rough time too, like, worldwide.
Yeah, it was already a lot going on in the world. It was a little past COVID, so the world was just opening up when I started. It was just beginning to be whatever normal means that people.
Did we ever come to normal?
I don't know if there's ever been normal. I think we had an idea of what normal was
Mm,
for the longest
yeah.
time. But yeah, it was a tough time. A lot was happening in the world. But I think a lot of companies were really trying to genuinely figure it out.
Do
We're
you think
really trying to say, what did we miss? What can we be doing to help employees not lose it all the time? I think some employers actually didn't realize how many people were suffering in
mm.
the workplace.
I think about this moment in time that we're living in right now versus what we were living in kind of at that point. When it comes to DI specifically, like, I think after the murder of George Floyd, like, there was so much push, some of it genuine, some of it not, truly.
We realize now how not
Right,
genuine
like
a lot of them were.
exactly, and so I think that's where I was going with. It's sad, but also, like, we are seeing the masks drop.
Came off, yes. Literally, the masks all came off in the last year, definitely, for sure.
Are you still working in that in the DEI space?
I was thinking as you shared the masks were coming off, I have this weird thing that I can almost see, like, trends coming, and
Yeah.
this is gonna sound strange. Even leaving higher ed, I left at a time that right after I left, a lot was happening in higher ed that I was like, "Wow, I'm glad I didn't have to work full time in higher ed during the pandemic, would have been so." I
God,
don't know if I'd be alive, like I said, I just don't know. Not with the level of burnout I was feeling at the time, but I feel like I also saw it coming. When the world decided, okay, we're going to make sure we're going to support Black-owned businesses only or center that. When we said we're going to make sure we have diversity and inclusion programming, and that's what we're doing, and a lot of focus happened, I think there were some people that were resentful and didn't want to
Yeah,
see it
me
and never did, and were forced into it in ways that it happened so fast that I think I saw it coming. I could see the faces. I could see having done roles where that was a primary part of my job. I saw the people in the back with their arms crossed and like, wait till I get in charge. I'm not going to let this happen because I think we forgot to make sure everyone was included in the conversation. And there were
mm,
some people that were quiet. We didn't see that because we were so turbo focused on what do we need to change? What paint do we need to put on it? What do we need to do to put the lipstick on the pig to make this thing look good? And it's if you didn't already have
big.
good values and if you didn't already have a place where people want to be there and work, because if you have to have a conversation in a workplace and say, oh, how do we recruit more people of color? How do we recruit more diversity? You don't have to work that hard if you're already a good place.
That's a
'Cause
very good point. It's a
you shouldn't have to work so hard. You should just be a good place that knows how to tell people what advancement looks like, what opportunity looks like, what engagement looks like. Anyway, all that to say, I don't even know where we got to this place, but I saw it coming and I remember changing my title actually. When I was working at Billie Jean King Enterprises, I was managing director for diversity, equity, and inclusion when I first got there. And then I was like, you know what? I think we need to expand my title a little just to make sure that we can stay marketable and ready. So I changed it to inclusion and leadership development.
oh, smart.
Because technically,
Same
that's
thing.
what we were doing. I was
Right.
doing leadership development my whole career also in addition to inclusion. And I think sometimes people didn't the DEI term for some people was too much for them to understand and grasp, especially if you are someone that is never been excluded
Yeah.
and you've never been in a place of marginalization, you don't even know what it means because you're like, what does that mean? Don't you enter every space and everybody smiles at you? And it's no, that's not the experience for everybody. Unfortunately, that's not. So I was able to pivot. I pivoted pretty quickly. And even in this last year, some of what I was consulting on with some of the nonprofits I worked with was looking at the language and making updates to remove any words that creates barriers to any federal funding coming through or any adjacent organizations, schools, and other places that could lose their funding because of some of the mandates that were coming out in the last year or so. So while some people completely went out of business,
Mhm.
I would say I pivoted and I was able to really think about, okay, let's meet the moment. Let's meet. I was always like that anyway throughout my whole career. Let's meet the moment. What do we need to shift? What do we need to change to do what is right for right now and not sit on what was happening 10 years ago? We can't. We got to keep it moving.
I know what it's like to work with, like, kind of icons, and it's interesting. It's, like, very cool to see, very cool to have that energy, very cool to be doing something that you're passionate about and having certain platform, like, helping you do it. What made you quit? What made you wanna actually say and I know you and I talked about it before, like, several times, and you were not ready, and I know that, and I'm curious, like, what made you be like, "Okay, I'm ready to bet on this?"
Bet on me, right?
This
That was
being
it.
you.
Yeah. And yes, we did have many conversations, and I call you my quitting doula. My
I love it. I love
Because it was not an easy decision when you're in a place of what some people might perceive as privilege, where you are
it.
exposed to things that you
Right.
normally would not have access to. It's different. I would say just coming back to me, coming back to myself and finding my voice again and knowing I have a long career myself that I'm really proud of. I have experiences that I want to make sure I own, right? For my own future, my almost like future proofing myself and making sure I found my voice again. I can't explain it further than that, but
Interesting.
and this could happen in any workplace,
Right.
right? Like any workplace, you become that workplace. You become
Mm,
the
yeah.
identity of what that is. And I turned 50 around that time. And there's something about turning 50 where you go, who am I? Separate from all the things. I had already started that beginning of that journey, right? When I moved over to leaving academia after having been there for so long. And then there was the second moment of, who do I want to be in this world? And how can I do that? Well, I can't do that if I'm not my own boss.
There's something about milestone birthdays. I 100% agree because I always joke that me turning 40 and me quitting my job in the same year are not a coincidence. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing, but I know that part of it is stuff that you were already doing. Like you had your Latina group name.
Latina Insight Academy. I created during the pandemic also, I created a Latina Insight Academy, which was my way of creating a coaching program around what are the things that are barriers that we could overcome or at least try to advance in the workplace. And it was based on my dissertation. I wrote my dissertation for my PhD on how race, ethnicity, and gender impacted the career trajectory of Latinas in mid-level. Because I was stuck in mid-level, so I did some research and I said, what is it that's holding us back from being in senior level positions? It was specific to higher ed, but what I found was it's actually more common with other fields too. So I took the findings and turned it into a course.
I just had to write the word me search down because
Research. I needed to figure out how to get out of mid-level. And honestly, while writing that dissertation was when I advanced. I went from an assistant dean position to an associate vice president and dean of students position. So I was my own
you were your
inspiration
guinea
and what's
pig.
comfortable. Yes, but I also found a really amazing coach that helped me get ready for the interviews and really helped me articulate how my experience was valid, good, solid, and it was amazing.
You can't it's very hard to see that from the inside. Like,
Yeah,
you need that help.
yeah,
Quitting is a hard thing. Like, whatever it is you're quitting, I'm not like, we're talking about a job, but quitting as a thing, as an action of leaving something behind is so hard. Both the making of the decision, like you're talking about coming back to yourself, the doubts of, "Is this the right thing? Is this the right time?" And then the uncertainty after. Even if you have clear that this is what you wanna do, like, even if you have it clear that, "Okay, I wanna go down my coaching and consulting business and continue to build that," there's still uncertainty, and there's still, I think, a process of for me, it was grief. I don't put that word in other people's experience because everyone has their own experience, but for me, it was grief of finding out who I was. I didn't have anything clear that I was working towards, but I'm curious about how that time frame was for you. Like the finally saying getting away from the doubt and then after.
yeah. It is like grief. I have cried on the last day of every single job, whether I
Yeah,
didn't like
same.
the job or not, or I had issues at the end. I have loved every job I had. It was like I loved it until I didn't.
Mhm.
Something is a turning point, right? At every job where you go, it's time to move on for different reasons. But I remember one job I was leaving, packing up, and it was like almost midnight. I'm still packing up my office and I'm crying with my boxes to the car. I'm like, what is wrong with you? This is a good thing. It's a promotion. Stop crying. Why are you crying? Because I'm like, I'm gonna miss the students. I'm gonna miss where I am. But for this one, it was different because it felt like I was already working on some leadership development programming that I had already just been ideating for a really long time, sitting on for a while. I had the Latina Inside Academy I had already been working on, and from that branched out more of the coaching, and people were referring people to me, not just Latinas. So I had some men that I was coaching. I had some women that were not Latina I was coaching. It was a pretty cool moment of I've got people looking for me for some of these things that I have to offer. So when I left, it was because I was ready and I had some things lined up that I said, if I don't leave now, I can't take advantage of those
Mhm.
offers I'm getting for consulting opportunities, the leadership development stuff that I was doing. So it was just a good moment. So when I did it, I wasn't afraid because there were contracts I was about to sign that were really exciting and really cool. And then I was busy with that. So I didn't have time to even mourn. It's like when you don't have time to mourn, it wasn't until a few months later when I was like, okay, some of these wrapped up. Now what? Like, I'm
There's always a
like,
moment where it hits you.
yes. Yeah, that's when I was like, "Oh, it was so nice to have a steady paycheck. Now I have to go chase that paycheck when 'cause I'm my own boss, so I have to figure it out." So it's been ups and downs, and I have to say I've been really lucky, but I also feel that expression, luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Mhm.
I've been prepared for a lot of things, so I've been keeping my eye out. I've been planting the seeds of goodwill and doing things for a lot of people for a long time and helping people advance in their careers, so some of them were the ones that turned around and hired me. For when they heard I was out on my own, I had some of my former coaching clients who were like, "Hey, I need this thing for my company," or "Come do a disc assessment with my team," or "Come do a team development or retreat," or whatever. So, I've been very lucky, and I've had a lot of referrals, but one thing I've realized even lately, even the last month, I wanted to be on your show so much sooner, but I wasn't ready to
I
talk
know.
about it. Like, how do I go on and talk about I just quit my job and then I'm gonna go get another job because I didn't make it or I didn't do it or something like that. I finally felt ready to talk about how it's hard, it's not easy, but I also know luck and referrals is not a business plan. So
Mhm.
I'm in the mode of creating something that's more sustainable and systematic. I wrote a book.
Of course you did.
I'm I'm sharing this here first publicly. I've told a few
Oh,
people
I get the what's it called?
yeah, the exclusive.
That's what I'm that's the word.
Yes, yes, I wrote a book in the last year. I joined this really amazing writing program called Publish Your Purpose. Jen T. Grace, she's amazing, and it was a writing group that you submit your writings, they critique and then give you some feedback, and then I went to a writing retreat last year in Dominican
Fun.
Republic. That was
Oh, that
amazing.
sounds really nice.
Inspirational. Yeah, my sister went with me, and we're going again this year to Santo Domingo, this time to the colonial area to look at history of my family.
Oh,
But I was writing the book because there was a certain pattern that kept coming up in my coaching that I kept doing. And I'm like, huh, I wonder if I could figure out an acronym because in higher ed, we love acronyms.
mhm.
There are acronyms for everything. I remember on campuses, I was like, "We should create a glossary of all our acronyms. When someone joins the campus, they know what everything is." Because it was RA, RD, RHD, all these different things, and people would look at us like, "What?" I'm like, "Give them the glossary so they can catch up really quickly." So I came up with an acronym for a whole way of thinking. I won't share it yet because 'cause I'm still getting the book together, but I can tell you what the method is. It's first seeing where you are, your current situation, just as always, getting a good self-assessment. Figuring out what is most important to you, what are your values, and making sure that whatever decisions you're making are because of what you're centering in your life. Then that's the next part is the creativity part. What is possible? What are all the things that you might be able to do if you had no barriers and nothing getting in your way? Then there's the realistic part. No, really, what's the real strategy and plan here? With what you actually have in front of you and what is actually feasible in this moment. And then the final part is do it. Make it happen. So this has a really cool acronym, and when I'm ready to share it, maybe I'll come on your show
Yeah.
again. Like Heidi Mendez got on your show twice, so I wanna be like her when I grow up.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So when I'm ready, I'll come back and we can talk about my book.
You said right now you kept doing this in your coaching sessions. Was it a certain situation that you kept seeing people go through, or was it in all different types of situations?
Yes, I kept doing this to figure out where people were in their current before you can make any decision of what change you need to make. Usually people come to coaching because 'cause they're like, "I wanna find a new job," or "I'm in transition," or "I need to figure something out in my life that needs to change." So I call this a change implementation model because what I kept seeing was that moment of like, "I don't even know how to make this decision. No, we need the change, but how do I figure out what change makes sense right now?" So the most important thing that of the whole model, aside from the action, the 2 most important parts are the values part and the action part. So figuring out what is most important. I have had people in tears where I go, "Okay, let's talk about your values. Like, what is most important to you? What are your non-negotiables? What thing will you not give up? What thing do you have to do or keep in your life to feel motivated, to feel excited?" Okay, after we figure that out, and that sometimes takes some time, we're like, "All right, now we can really think about all the possibilities and figure out what you could do. But you need an assessment back to what are you good at? You can't be like, oh, I'm going to become a coach tomorrow. Okay. Yes, you can, but are there some skill sets you need? Are there contacts you need? Are there some things you need to put in place to figure out when to do that or how to do that? And I'm just making that up.
To put another example, like, you can't just say, "Okay, I'm gonna go be a number one pop star. You have to, like,
Like,
know.
you know how to sing? Do you
Right.
need any lessons? Do you have any connections in the music
Right.
industry? Are you gonna record it yourself? No, yeah, you're right. I had someone who said, "I wanna be a CEO of a nonprofit organization." Okay.
Okay.
What skill sets do you have that would make an organization, a board, believe that you could do that? And I did have someone become a CEO of a nonprofit as part of our coaching, but they had such a solid background. They just needed to articulate that to a board and they needed to realize who their audience was and
Mm.
who they needed to convince. So when you get to the part of what's realistic and what is actually possible, that's when by then you've already done the work. What's most important? What are my skill sets? What resources do I have available to me? What can I seek out if I'm not ready yet? And then when you have all that, you can say, okay, take the next step, wherever
Do
that
you
is.
do
And you
you
can revisit this over and over. That's the cool part I like about it.
It's hard, though. The non-negotiables is very hard, and obviously the action plan is very hard. Like, I think you can get really stuck. I can get really stuck. I should not talk for other people, but I can get really stuck with the action part
Yes.
of it
Yeah.
because it's also about breaking it, like you're saying, into what you need to do. What
Yes.
is it that you need to do to get to where you wanna go?
Yes, and I'll share I have a really amazing colleague, I'm gonna call her out, her name's Jillian Atkinson, and I rely on her a lot. We do a lot of mutual coaching,
Mhm.
and we help each other think through stuff, and we were brainstorming about, "Okay, what is the next thing that you need to do?" We always ask each other, "What's the next step? What's the next thing?" And it could be manageable. One thing I wanna do is finish the editing of my book. I have a developmental editor who's giving me all this feedback, and I have to finish incorporating it. And I'm shuffling my feet on it. Her question to me was like, "Let's look at your calendar. What do you need to remove that's unnecessary on your calendar because what you need is time?" And I realized I had signed up for this conference on Wednesday, and I was like, do you really need to be there? No. So I went ahead and just deleted it. I suddenly found myself a whole full day. I'm like, I can't wait to finish editing this thing. I was so excited. But it took her pointing that out to me. And that's why it's so important for someone to be like your companion, your quitting doula, your
I should put
person
that
that
on my
told you
LinkedIn.
something. Yeah, yeah. You should put that on your LinkedIn title up at the top.
I always like seeing these parallels. When you left academia to go to JED and found this, like, extra time in your life, you were saying you had a really hard time kind of putting you first or doing something for you, and I'm curious if when you quit this last job, Billie Jean King, to go on your own, did you make any time for you that was not just to go and pursue what you were the consulting and the coaching that you were gonna do?
That's a good question. No, I did not. As
Mm.
a matter of fact, I went turbo into working on all these different proposals, figuring out how to get some feelers out for marketing stuff. Not a lot of it, but I started posting a little more on LinkedIn because I knew visibility was important. And I was getting up at 4 or 5 in the morning. I still do that because I have some different projects I'm working on. So I'm still working on it. I have to do external stuff to motivate myself. So I joined the gym and I joined the challenge recently that you have to go 3 times a week or you lose this money that you put in. And I've been motivated because I don't
Money is
wanna
a
lose any
great this is why I pay for a trainer now
so it's
because
like a cycle. Yeah, I did have more time to do some things for myself and spend more time with my family and travel, and I love the fact that I can look at my calendar and go, "Oh, I'm gonna go to my son's family weekend next weekend." I just block the schedule. That's it. I don't have to take days off. It's my time that I'm taking off, and then I have other things that if I wanna go to a conference or not, if I wanna go to something, it has to fit in the budget and all that, but yes, I have actually made
Okay,
time
okay.
for some of the yeah, I'm always like doom and gloom first, but I actually have put stuff on my schedule that had I been in a full-time job, I would have had to think twice because 'cause I'm like, "Do I wanna take a day off for that?" Where my time is very different now. It's more like, "Do I wanna wake up early today so that I can do that thing tomorrow?" Yeah, because it's me flexing my own schedule, figuring it out.
I think there's this myth of you're gonna become an entrepreneur and you're gonna have all this freedom, and yes, but no, right? You
No.
have, like you said, the flexibility of your time to maybe arrange it in a different way, but no, many times you just go down and work. You either work harder or, in my case, get stuck and then just feel really guilty for not working harder.
such a cycle. But I say
Mhm.
you have to in a way, you're earning your freedom, but you have to earn it with discipline to
That's a
be
good
an
one.
entrepreneur.
That's a good one. Okay, last question. If you could go back when you were really burnt out without knowing what burnout was, what would you tell yourself?
I would say there's a light at the end of this tunnel, and wait till you see how cool it's gonna be in a few years when you are able to do so many really amazing things, and everything that you learned from undergraduate, from your childhood, from being a camp counselor, all of it is gonna pay off later, so don't despair, don't get caught up in what's so hard right now, because those things that are hard right now, they're the most amazing stories I get to tell now during my training sessions and when I'm talking with people and when I'm coaching, I can actually say, "I have been there. I get it. Let's figure out how to get you out. I'm out. Let's get you out." Because 'Cause I'm true even though I might say I'm busy and yes, I have a lot going on, I'm not burnt out.
That is a big thing. Getting out of that cycle is just so different.
It really is. And I'm not saying I have mostly ups. That's not
No,
possible. I have my downs. I have my days that
everyone
I'm like,
does, though.
ugh.
Everyone does. And whoever says they don't is lying. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
It's human nature. I was laughing internally as you said camp counselor because it's like camp counselor, RA, trainer, coach. You're a teacher.
Yep. Teacher.
Anything
Entrepreneur.
else I missed that you might want to talk about?
I didn't talk too much about my family and like where when I remember like where I might have found my motivation. And I want to say my mom passed in 2021. So during the transition I was going through was a moment where I was just really appreciating everything I learned from her and her resilience. And I used to call myself a first generation entrepreneur. And I'm like, that is such a lie. My father was a cab driver, so he was his own boss. And my mom used to sell Avon, Tupperware, clothes, bras, everything. Like she was such a and I used to say hustler, and it wasn't a hustle. Like she was an entrepreneur. So if we use the word hustler or the word hustle, takes the legitimacy out of it because she used to keep books. She used to keep records. All these people in the neighborhood owed her money. So it was so cool that she was like keeping track like a real business. And she was an entrepreneur. I want to
Yeah.
say that. Like I always had it in me. It's not anything that came out of nowhere. This is what I was taught from my own mother, who was her own, like, badass. So, I wanted to just make sure I honor
I
her in this conversation.
I love that because you talked about your mom a couple times mentioning how she would push you, right? If you're bored, here's a broom, or are you
Yeah,
president now?
yes.
And that color that you just shared of her being an entrepreneur and your dad being an entrepreneur and like that background gives so much more meaning to that push in a way.
Yeah,
And I like the idea of not using the word hustle. I think that it's right. I've never thought about it, but it's true. It does take out the legitimacy of a lot of this work, which is it's work, right?
yeah, legitimate work.
Legitimate work.
Absolutely. So, thank you for having me. So, I really appreciate it, and I'm glad I felt like I was finally ready to be here.
I'm
Thank you.
so happy. Thank you. That's it for today. Thanks for listening. If you liked this episode, hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if it made you think, feel something, or yell same out loud, leave a quick rating or review. It really helps. If you didn't like it, just pretend this never happened. You can also subscribe on Substack for updates and extras. I'd love to hear from you. Come say hi on Instagram at quitmyjobpod or email me at quitmyjobpod@gmail.com. See you next time.